the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast, brought to you by Thankflip GAMSAT. We're here to teach you how to smash the GAMSAT, get into medicine, and become a flippin' great doctor. Hey, it's your girl Marie here. I am ready for another installment of the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast. Super excited to be here today because I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics of all time. So today's episode is for you if you are sitting March and you have not started studying yet. You must listen to this episode. This is going to rock your world. This is also for anyone who has found that procrastination sometimes get in the way, or they feel like maybe they're a little bit lazy, or they feel like you might feel like you're not motivated sometimes, which, just spoiler alert, like motivation is never meant to last forever. That is just something that is a little spark. You're never going to feel as motivated as you are when you first start the project. When you're halfway through, sometimes not as motivating. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to find out why you're feeling that way and what we can do to make sure that you actually do the work that you need to do to get the result that you want. Now, I want to start by introducing something, and we call this the Crush the GAMSAT Triangle. And this is a system that you can use in any area of your life, but we have implemented it specifically for the GAMSAT so that you can understand what it takes to get a good score. Now, if you're watching this on video, you imagine a triangle has three sides, right? There are three sides to the Crush the GAMSAT Triangle. And I'm going to run through each of the sides and we're going to figure out what is going on for you to not be studying the way that you should be studying, which, might be a problem. So if you haven't started yet and you're sitting March 2026, this is your sign, okay? This is your sign. We've got to get moving. So let's imagine a little triangle. And on one side of the triangle, in fact, on all three sides of the triangle are three different areas that are going to help you to improve or to get what you need done. This is skill acquisition. This is any way. These three sides of the triangle will help you build any skill. Now, the first side of the triangle, we're going to call that skill set. Now, if you imagine a triangle and there's three little kind of lines coming off it, there are three areas of your skill set that you need to build within the GAMSAT to get a high score. Now, it's pretty obvious what those are. Like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know. Like, section 1, section 2, section 3. Now, my problem is that everybody focuses just on skill set. And if skill set alone was going to help, then for most people, that'd already be in. But there are two other sides of the triangle that are just as important as the skill set when we're talking about study that most people miss. So the second side I want to talk about is something we call work ethic. Now, this is how you're getting down and doing the work, right? How you're learning the skill set. And if you imagine three little lines coming off that side of the triangle, there are three areas that we can focus on here. Two of them most people focus on. One of them nearly nobody that I speak to is focusing on. So the first side of that, or the first little area coming off that side, the work ethic triangle, part of the triangle, is called number of hours. Like, how many hours are you actually sitting down to study? If you're telling me you're studying like 20 minutes a day and you're sitting March 2026, we're going to have a problem, right? There's just not enough hours to actually get through probably what you need to get through. But the second line of the triangle is just as important as the first, which is the quality of your study. If you don't have a plan and you are studying 20 hours a week, but you're just going, finish this thing, what am I going to do next? And you just make it up as you go, and you're not actually having 20 quality hours per week, well, then what's the point of putting in the 20 hours? Like, half of them probably just faffing around, deciding what to do and kind of, getting distracted and all that kind of stuff. So we need number of hours, but we also need the quality of those hours to be high, and what we're doing actually engaging and learning the skills whilst we're investing the hours. We call that quality of hours. We call that planning. You getting my gist here. Now, the third area, almost no one tackles, and everybody actually loves it, but so I don't know why it's ignored so much, but it is called recharge. What the recharge area is all about is not burning out. Now, if you have been studying for a little while and maybe you're working full time, or maybe you're studying on the side, or you're juggling life and sport and social commitments and all of the things, because life doesn't stop when we're studying for the GAMSAT. Recharge is the most important thing, and it's usually the first thing that goes out the window. What that means is, what are you doing outside of the areas of your study? So if you're studying 20 hours a week, what are you doing with the other however many hours a week? That's actually meaning when you sit down, you are doing quality study. Like, what is your eating like? What's your sleep like? How are you moving your body? How are you making sure that you are actually in a peak state and you're doing all of the other things to take care of yourself? Because the number of hours don't matter if you haven't got the quality plan of what you're doing within those hours. But you can have all of those hours and come to me and you're studying between 10 and midnight every night and you're exhausted from working full time and you haven't actually got the self-care in place where you're able to focus at that time. And in which case, what's the point? Right? They're just crap hours. So work ethic is just as important as skill set. Now, if you've looked at this episode because you want to kind of get around feeling not motivated, procrastinating, maybe having a little bit of self-sabotage in there, this last part of the triangle is the most important part. And what it is, we call it mindset. So you got skill set, mindset, and work ethic. That is what builds the triangle. Now, in the mindset area, particularly for the GAMSAT, there are 3 core areas that we focus on. The first one is negative self-talk. The second one is self-sabotage. And the third one is fear of failure. Now, for some people, even as I'm mentioning those things, you're like, bing, 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 like an alarm is going off in your head and you're like, that's me, shit, like, oh no, got the fear of failure, right? And for some people, we might be in a little bit of denial. So I want to go into each of them so that you can understand what it is, what it looks like, how it manifests itself in your life, and what we can do to actually remove ourselves from that and maybe self-coach ourselves a little bit out of that dead end in that area. Because if you're focused on your skill set and you've got an amazing work ethic, there can be definitely a blockage in the mindset, which means those other 2 areas are not going well. So if you imagine a table, you don't have a table and you try and get it to stand on one leg, right? We want 3 legs to be able to hold the tabletop. If you take one of those 3 legs away, well, we're going to have a bit of a crash. And I think some people in the past, definitely people that I've spoken to, have felt that crash. So let's dive into the first one, which is negative self-talk. What this is the little voice in our head. Now, we all have this little voice. We all talk to ourselves within our own brain. But the question is, what is it that you are saying to yourself? So I got off the phone with this gorgeous student the other day, and she said to me, I've sat the GAMSAT 4 times, and I actually went better in the times where I didn't study rather than the times where I studied really hard. And so that means I shouldn't study. And that means that no matter how much work I do, I'm not going to get better. So why try? And I was like, a warning, alarm. This is negative self-talk, because the story that she's telling herself is not empowering. It's not giving her the tools and techniques to actually build what she needs to build in her life, which for her to achieve her dreams, she needs to build a really good GAMSAT score. And if she can't, then she's not going to become a doctor. But the story is the negative self-talk she's telling herself is that I can't build my skill set because when my work ethic is high, it doesn't work anyway. Now, she may have evidence in the past for that to have happened, but if she doesn't find another way through that self-talk and that belief that she has, then that's going to be the thing that gets in her way. If she doesn't find a way to build those skills and understand that having a strong work ethic does take those 3 areas. It's not just the hours you put in, but it's the plan. It's what you're doing within those hours. And so once I started to explain this, and this was a gorgeous girl that I was speaking to, like she genuinely wanted to get in, but she didn't understand that the hours she was putting in needs to be with a really, really great plan. And when she has the plan and she dedicates the hours, that's when she's going to get the results. We needed to change the self-talk that was going on in her head. There are heaps of other examples of negative self-talk that I hear all the time, like I'm not smart enough. I didn't come from any doctors or no one from my family's been to university before. And who do I think I am? And all of these things, they're really just stories that we've made up in our head. And I always say to my bootcamp members, if we're going to make a story up, at least make it a good one, okay? Like, there's no reason for us to be making BS stories in our head. Like, oh, just because no one else has gone to med school in your family doesn't mean that you can't do it. Why not? You've got the diligence and you're tenacious and the work ethic and you've done hard things before. And so if we start to believe the stories that are going on in our head, one way to really get around that is to go, whose story is that anyway? Because all of these things come from somewhere. Most of the time, they don't just get plucked in the air. It's something that someone has said to us along the way that we have internalized as the truth. We have created that as a belief. And the way to actually change your beliefs is to tell yourself a new story and find evidence of that story. So we can say something like, okay, this is going to be really hard, but guess what? I can do hard things. And then go away and write down 10 hard things that you have done in your life. And I can guarantee you, you have done some hard things. You are not here on this journey going, my entire life has been smooth sailing. Oh, hell no. I know that. We've all done hard things. Sometimes we forget that we're resilient, that we've done hard things before, and we need a reminder. So like when I face a challenge, the thing that I say to myself is like, I gave birth. So my story when I gave birth was that my daughter took 36 hours to get birthed. It was a long bloody time, I'm going to tell you that. Not the grandest day of my life. Those 36 hours were in a lot of pain, right? I don't think many people say, yes, I loved childbirth, right? And now everything gets compared to that. I'm like, this is nothing. I gave birth for 36 hours. If I can do that, I can do a measly little test. Or like last year we were renovating our property and we had some tradies that didn't turn up and I needed to call like 1,000 other tradies, it felt like, just to find one to replace this one that didn't turn up. And I was like, I can do this. It's not hard. Just to find another tradie. If I can give birth, I can find another tradie, right? And so it's our point of reference, which then enables us. Can you see how I'm self-coaching myself out of this negative self-talk that I can't do something hard? Because guess what? We've all done something hard before. And if you've not had everything handed to you on a silver platter, like most people haven't, you've done something hard. The other thing to remember about negative self-talk is that what we say to ourselves over and over and over again is what becomes our truth. So if you have a little kid, so let's say you have a son, and every day of your son's life, you say, boys are dumb. Boys are dumb. You put him to bed, you tuck him in, you say, guess what? Boys are dumb. Now, the first couple times, particularly if he's 8, like my daughter, they'll be like, no, we're not. What are you talking about? Boys are smart, da, 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 and they'll fight back. But eventually, if you just continue telling him the same thing over and over again, that little boy is going to think boys are dumb. And he is not going to be the brightest in the class because you've trained him to believe that boys are dumb. Now, you would never do that to a little kid, would you? You would never, ever, over and over and over again, tell a child something horrible to them that would affect their self-esteem, would affect their self-belief, and say it as if it was true. Like, that's a nasty thing to do. I know you would never do that. But guess what? We do that to ourselves. We say things within our own brain. We don't even verbalize them. We just say it in our head. And guess what? We're the only ones listening, right? So the first step to actually moving past any negative self-talk is actually identifying when we're doing it. Like, if you're chopping vegetables and you accidentally chop a little bit of your finger, which we've all kind of done, we sliced ourselves a little bit, we're like, oh, do you say, oh my God, I'm such an idiot? Or do you go, whoops, that was a mistake? Because one way you're actually being quite kind to yourself, and another way you're being quite nasty. And so let's just start with negative self-talk, understanding what is it that I'm saying to myself over and over and over again so much that I don't even notice it now, and I'm believing that it's true. Now, the next one, if we're looking at the skill set, the work ethic, and the mindset, we've covered negative self-talk. Let's cover self-sabotage. Who knows what this looks like? I wish sometimes that this was like interactive and you could put in the chats like, here's all the way I've self-sabotaged before, right? Because we've all done it. I've all self-sabotaged in one way, shape, or another. However, what we got to do is identify when we're in the act and start to make a change. So what is your self-sabotage technique? What is the thing that happens? Do you, go out for one drink with the girls and then accidentally drink 10 and then come back hungover and we can't study the next day? Or do we go too hard at the gym and then we've got no energy to study? Or do we say things like, well, I've just got to clean my table first before I can study? And then we spend half the day cleaning the house and avoiding the study. Like, what are you doing to self-sabotage? 90% of the work with self-sabotage is identifying what is the pattern. And usually once you've identified it, we can go through, like, for example, if you're part of my boot camp, maybe your study mentor, Vrunda, can catch you up when you're doing that. Or you can say, hey, I'm banning myself from Netflix because that's my self-sabotaging. I stay up all night watching Netflix. So I told my boyfriend to change my Netflix password until after the GAMSAT so that I can't stay up binge watching and then have no energy in the morning, go to work, and then just be exhausted after work. So it's really hard to catch yourself in it. But when you do and you start to see the pattern, this is when we can start to make something change. So self-sabotage is the second one. The third one, and this is probably the biggest that I see day in, day out, it is fear of failure. So self-sabotage and fear of failure usually work together. And the way they manifest themselves is people not doing the work. So the biggest number one thing where I go, red flashing light, something's happening here with fear of failure, is when I hear people say, I'm just doing this as a trial, or I haven't really studied, but I'm going to sit the exam anyway. And what I can see is happening behind the scenes in their psychology is like, cool, I really want to be a doctor. I am motivated. I am a smart person. These are usually people with high GPAs or people that know better. I would never say, if you didn't speak Chinese, I would never say, here's a Chinese language test. Go and do it now without studying. You're going to get 0. Like, you don't know the language yet, right? However, for some reason, people think like in the GAMSAT, it's different. I'm just going to give it a go. I know that's fear of failure rearing its head because the underlying belief is if I do the exam and I don't give it my 100% and I don't go well, that's on me. I didn't study properly. Clearly, it doesn't mean that I'm not smart enough. It doesn't mean that I'm dumb. It just means I didn't really apply myself. And that's a reflection of maybe your work ethic, but that's not a reflection on yourself, on who you are as a person. However, and here's the next step that people are going to think about. If you try your hardest, you do everything, you invest in a course, you do the course, you sacrifice time with your family, sacrifice time with your friends, you change everything about your life, you really go hard, and you do not get the results that you want, what is the story that you're telling yourself that means about you? And for most people, that's going to mean I'm not good enough. And the biggest fear for all people of all time, everyone on the planet is going to be, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve my dreams. I can't get there. It is out of my reach. And that's a massive fear for people. So if you're procrastinating, if you're doing the GAMSAT as a trial, if you're not putting in all the work ethic that you know is possible, then I can almost guarantee that there's fear of failure somewhere happening behind the scenes. And so what I recommend, particularly just to start the process, and there's so many things we can do to beat fear of failure, is first understanding that that's where you're at and making the decision to make a change. There are so many techniques that we can go through. Probably the easiest, quickest one, just to mention here very quickly, would be to always follow your plan, and you can do it crap, but you got to do it. So let me give you an example. I'm a big one. I'm doing visualizations, meditations. I do it every week in the 9 weeks leading up to the exam with my bootcamp members. And usually if there's someone else doing it with you, you'll just, most people just sit down and kind of participate and enjoy it and really love it and feel great afterwards. It's sometimes really hard to do on your own. So I started this hypnosis where you listen to the hypnosis on your AirPods, and there's just someone who's doing the hypnosis. And I said to myself, I'm going to do this 21 days straight. Here's what I did though. The success that I had was that I was not going to skip a day, but I could do it crap. So some days I sat down, perfect state, did this hypnosis, felt great, got the benefits, fan-bloody-tastic. Other days, I was like, my monkey mind was going. I couldn't concentrate. I put it in. I was meant to be lying down with my eyes closed, but I literally could not do it. Everything was going on in my head. So I got up. I started reading a book, but I still had my AirPods in. I did it, but I did it crap. And it still counts, because what that's doing is showing myself that I can keep my own word to myself. There is nothing more important than actually doing what you say you're going to be doing, not because anyone's watching, but because that's going to affect your own confidence if you can trust yourself. And when you start to build that muscle of trust in yourself, then have you ever heard that saying, when the tide rises, all boats rise? You can't build confidence in yourself in one area and then feel crap everywhere else. Your self-confidence is going to go up in all areas. And so starting to combat your fear of failure by doing the work and saying something like, I do the work even if I do it crap, I don't care. The quality of the work is not what I'm determining as success right now. Of course, that's going to change in future. But right now, for 21 days, I'm going to follow my plan. I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it crap. But it's going to get done. And making sure you do that is going to one teeny tiny step in the right direction. I mean, a big part of that, just like self-sabotage, just like negative self-talk, is also identifying when you're in there, and maybe even raising the white flag. Book a call with the team if you want to talk about your mindset, because we have a whole mindset. We have the fear of failure protocol. We talk about negative self-talk. We talk about all the bits that we've talked about here within the bootcamp. But the reason why I'm saying this is that sometimes just waving the white flag to someone, saying, hey, I think this is what's happening, can you help, can actually create an environment which allows you to change. So have you ever heard, you are a sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with? And so getting into a different environment, understanding, okay, this is the blockage. Either I've got a skill set blockage, which most people who've sat the GAMSAT once or that I speak to, like if you're going fantastic in the GAMSAT, you're probably not listening to this podcast, right? But usually people that come to us or that listen to the podcast need help. So for most people, that skill set, that needs to be built, and that's obvious. But finding where the blockages are in that work ethic area and then that mindset area, that can be the thing that really changes the trajectory. It could be the difference between sitting the GAMSAT once and sitting it 4 times, like that girl that I was talking about earlier who said, I'm not going to study because, well, if I study, I don't go that well anyway. So can you see how identifying where it is that you're blocked and then having strategies, tools, techniques to be able to self-coach you or get somebody else to help you get unblocked, which, put up my hand, this is my favorite thing to do. It can absolutely help you if you reach out to the team. If you're interested in joining the bootcamp, fantastic. If you're not, reach out to the team. We can actually try and help you in some way, shape or form. But the point being that these 3 core areas can make or break this sitting. Now, just before I wrap up, I just want to kind of say, I know that this podcast is about the GAMSAT, but what really drives me as a human is really helping people elevate all areas of their life. So we talked about this triangle being GAMSAT related and the 3 little bits coming off each side, each of them are GAMSAT related. But if you take off the little bits and you just look at skill set, mindset, and work ethic, any skill that you need to be built requires those 3 things. So if you've got a little brother or sister who's struggling at school, or maybe they want to be an Olympic athlete, or they want to be an engineer, or, it doesn't matter what the skill is, give them the triangle, pass it on. Say to them, where do you think the blockage is? Okay, you want to be an Olympic athlete? Where's the blockage right now? Do you have the skill set? Do you have a coach in place that's teaching you how to, let's say, run properly with proper technique? Do you have a work ethic? Are you skipping workouts? Are you skipping your training? Are you getting up? Are you eating the right thing? Are you fueling yourself? What's happening there? Or is there a mindset blockage where you think, who am I to go to the Olympics? And I really invite you to share that with your loved ones because, yes, I'm going to change your life in the GAMSAT. That's exciting for me. But I know, when the tide rises, all boats rise. If you can bring everyone up to achieve their goals with you, why the hell not? That's amazing. So go forth, do it, share it. Share this episode. I would love it if you know somebody who you think would be helpful just to understand these course concepts so that they can self-identify where they're at. And of course, as usual, if you'd like to speak to the team about getting further help from Thank Flip, from myself, from Dr. Tom, or any of our tutors, then reach out. I'll make sure in the show notes there's a way that you can either book a call or reach out to the team and understand more. So that's all from me for now. You enjoy the rest of your week and happy studies. Bye. Hey, I have a cool gift for you just for listening to the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast. We do some of our best work in our Facebook group called, you guessed it, Nurses Doing GAMSAT. It's free to join, and every day we're sharing actionable guides, tips and tricks, and really just how to smash the exam and get into medicine. You can join today by searching Nurses Doing GAMSAT on Facebook. Thanks for listening to another episode, and I'll see you next time.